The screech of power saws ripped through the morning silence on my property. And I mean my land, the title I held without encumbrances or liens. I stood frozen, watching a century-old maple tree older than any living relative I could name, come thundering down while coffee steam still rose from my cup. That Thursday morning marked the beginning of everything. My name is Marcus Patterson, and I'd relocated to Cedarbrook Meadows, Virginia to find peace after an exhausting separation. What I got instead was heavy machinery at sunrise, exhaust fumes polluting the mountain air, and the sound of historic timber splintering like fracturing bones. The neighborhood association orchestrated this destruction. No warning, no authorization, no remorse whatsoever. When I contacted the association's chairperson, Barbara, a property broker who despised me since I declined to change my period-appropriate exterior colors, she responded coolly, "Perhaps you should have familiarized yourself with our regulations, dear. Oh, and expect litigation for $42,000. How unfortunate for you." What would your response be? Share your thoughts below. Where are you located? I want to hear if your association behaves this outrageously. Let me rewind 20 months because you need context for how I became Barbara's target. I inherited 12 acres in Cedarbrook Meadows from my late Aunt Carolyn, a World War II correspondent who'd occupied that property since 1949. The tract sits on an original territorial grant from 1818, predating the association by over a century. When construction companies absorbed the adjacent parcels in 1984 and established Cedarbrook Meadows, Aunt Carolyn's estate got grandfathered into the arrangement, officially included in the development, but realistically an enclave of traditional independence encircled by 360 identical residences, where even your house numbers require committee authorization. Aunt Carolyn raised me during many childhood summers on that acreage. She taught me to track wildlife through the woods, distinguish maple from birch by texture, and why you never hurry quality craftsmanship. When she bequeathed it to me in her testament, it felt like inheriting a legacy. I'm a semi-retired structural designer. I spent 3 decades planning infrastructure and bridges, the irony of which becomes physically apparent shortly. And I'd just emerged from a separation that depleted half my nest egg and all my patience for indirect hostility. I craved tranquility. I wanted soil beneath my fingernails rather than courtroom stress. So I relocated to Virginia with 2 rescued canines, Rufus, a scarred terrier mix, and June, a mastiff who's frightened of monarchs, and began rebuilding my life. Mornings became precious. Coffee on the wraparound deck, cedar scent thick in the August humidity, woodpeckers drumming the weathered pine like miniature percussion instruments. I cultivated tomatoes and peppers, constructed garden furniture in my studio, contributed at the community pantry on Wednesdays, drafted an accessibility ramp for the municipal archive pro bono because that's what you do when you possess expertise. I maintained distance. Rural Virginia appreciates that approach. Contribute your share, avoid causing problems, you're accepted. Then I encountered Barbara Hutchins. Barbara is 51, a property broker who married advantageously twice and now operates the Cedarbrook Meadows Association, like Marie Antoinette wielding a gavel. Platinum highlighted bob that costs more than my vehicle payment. White luxury SUV. Vanity plate CM Boss because subtlety is for tenants. She's the personality who says, "How unfortunate," before issuing a $600 penalty. The committee has 9 members. Barbara controls 8 of them. She penalized elderly Mr. Kim $500 for an unauthorized decorative gnome. Not exaggeration, a ceramic gnome. Meanwhile, her tennis partners have inflatable decorations, and nobody mentions them. Her fixation is architectural consistency, meaning everything must resemble an upscale furniture catalog merged with a country club. My historically accurate green-gray shutters, documented to the 1820s and verified by the State Historical Office, offended her beige and cream aesthetic. 8 months after moving in, I received a violation notice. Non-compliant exterior paint. Remedy within 45 days or face $300 weekly penalties. I contested with historical documentation, photographs from the 1880s, correspondence from preservation specialists. The municipality sided with me. Barbara's expression never wavered, but I noticed her fingers tighten around her writing instrument. The fluorescent lights hummed like dying wasps. My palms were damp. "I suppose," she stated, voice syrup sweet, "certain individuals believe regulations don't concern them." That was the warning shot. Over the following year, citations for my commercial vehicle parked on the roadway overnight. Nobody else received tickets. A non-regulation bird feeder. My dogs vocalizing once had a delivery truck. I paid the penalties, kept my profile low, attempted invisibility. Then 8 months before the Bulldozers, Barbara proposed the Neighborhood Connectivity Initiative, a private roadway cutting through the rear section of my land to reduce residents' commute to the recreation center by 90 seconds. 90 seconds to obliterate trees that had survived the Civil War. She held the ballot at a session I was never informed about. My invitation correspondence mysteriously failed to deliver. Thursday morning, 6:43. Rufus started barking. Not his typical squirrel on the fence alarm, but the deep, frantic warning that signals genuine trouble. I stumbled to the window in my flannel sleep pants and saw them. 2 bulldozers, an excavator, and a surveying crew in high-visibility vests swarming over my back pasture like insects on discarded food. I didn't waste time with a shirt, just forced my feet into unlaced boots and ran. The smell struck me first, diesel exhaust, thick and caustic, mixing with the morning moisture still clinging to the vegetation. One of the dozers was already carving a muddy channel through what used to be wildflower fields. The other was positioning itself before the oldest maple on the property, a giant I'd measured at 7 feet diameter. Aunt Carolyn used to say that tree was already mature when her grandmother was born. "Stop! Stop!" I was shouting, waving my arms frantically. "What are you doing?" The foreman, name patch read Cole, descended from the dozer cabin looking irritated by my existence. He pulled a work authorization from his clipboard and thrust it at me. Association-approved construction. Start date today. Got a problem? Contact them. I stared at the document. Official association letterhead. Barbara's signature at the bottom, flowing and self-assured. Probably signed while sipping a beverage that cost more than Cole's hourly compensation. I never authorized this. This is my property. Cole shrugged. Not my concern, sir. I have a contract. You want us to stop? Get the association to tell us. I tried calling Barbara. Voicemail. Her outgoing message included the phrase, living authentically, which should be prosecutable. I tried the association management company, some organization called Premier Residential Services that charges $1,400 annually per household to answer phones and disregard complaints. The receptionist placed me on hold for 8 minutes of smooth jazz that made me contemplate violence, then informed me. The chairperson handles special initiatives directly. You'll need to contact Mrs. Hutchins. By the time I disconnected, they'd already carved a 50-foot scar through my land. The dozer at the maple revved its engine. I watched the blade bite into the trunk. The crack sounded like a gunshot. 203 years of growth. I counted the rings later, sitting on my deck with a whiskey I didn't remember pouring. Gone in 90 seconds, I photographed everything, dozens of images. The tire tracks gouging black earth. The splintered stumps. That massive maple lying horizontally. Root system torn open like a wound, exposing the pale interior of severed wood. Then I drove directly to the municipal clerk's office and retrieved every property document I could locate. My hands were trembling so violently I could barely grip the pages. No easement, no covenant, no legal authorization for the association to touch 1 inch of my land. I filed a police report. Officer Martinez, decent guy, lives 4 streets away, coaches youth soccer, took my statement and walked the property boundary with me. He shook his head. This is serious, Marcus. Really serious. But it's civil, not criminal. You're going to need a restraining order, possibly an injunction. Can't you arrest them for trespassing, destruction of property? I can cite the contractor, certainly, but the association is going to hire attorneys and claim they had authorization under the regulations. Then it becomes a judge's problem, and judges despise association disputes. You'll be in litigation for 2 years. He squeezed my shoulder. I'm sorry, man. Get a lawyer today. I emailed Barbara from my truck. Subject line, cease and desist illegal construction. Attached all the photographs, copied the entire association committee. Her reply arrived in 4 minutes. Marcus, check regulation 19.4G. This was approved according to community procedures. I'm sorry you're distressed, but the work will continue. See you in court, dear. I opened the association covenant. 93 pages of legal language designed to make you surrender and plant approved vegetation. Found regulation 19.4G. The committee may authorize infrastructure improvements on any parcel, where majority community benefit is demonstrated and approved by committee vote. Translation: we can do whatever we want if we claim it helps the community. Vague enough to drive a bulldozer through. Literally. My attorney Michael said it was legally questionable at best, which is attorney language for, you're probably right, but also probably destroyed. The association had substantial resources. They could drag this out until I went bankrupt. Michael's retainer, $9,000. I just rebuilt my savings after the separation, and then 10 days later I got served at the community pantry. While I was ladling soup for people with genuine problems, the process server approached, said my name, handed me the documents in front of 25 volunteers and 50 clients. Barbara was suing me for $42,000, claiming my obstruction delayed the project, costing contractor fees. The room went silent. Humiliation tastes like copper. I walked to my truck wondering how many people had already texted Barbara to inform her they'd witnessed my public humiliation. If your association threatens legal action, document everything. Photographs, correspondence, certified mail. Courts appreciate paper trails, and careless associations leave gaps you can exploit. Barbara didn't just want to win in court. She wanted to destroy me socially first. 3 days after I received the lawsuit documents, the whisper campaign commenced. I would be at the hardware store purchasing fasteners, and conversations would halt mid-sentence when I entered the aisle. At the farmer's market, a woman I had conversed with every Saturday for a year suddenly became absorbed in her phone screen when I greeted her. Then came the social media post. Cedarbrook Meadows maintains a private community group with 814 members, which exceeds the actual resident count because it includes renters, absentee owners, and apparently every curious relative within a 75-mile radius. Barbara posted at 9:30 on a Sunday evening during prime social media engagement hours. It breaks my heart when one individual's selfishness jeopardizes an entire community's safety and property values. The committee has worked tirelessly on improvements that benefit all residents, but unfortunately some people believe rules don't apply to them. Praying for a peaceful resolution. Hashtag community first, hashtag Cedarbrook strong. She did not name me. She did not need to. The comments accumulated like a toxic flood. Certain people move to a community and immediately think they own the place. I heard he screamed at the construction workers and threatened them. I had not. I never raised my voice to anyone except perhaps Rufus when he attempted to consume an entire stick of butter from the counter. My cousin's friend said, he's been unstable since his separation. That comment landed like a punch to the solar plexus. Rebecca, a retired educator who I had helped relocate 75-pound boxes when she downsized last spring, wrote, "Very unfortunate situation. Hope he gets the help he needs." I stared at that comment for 10 minutes. Rebecca believed I was unstable. Rebecca, who had brought me homemade pumpkin bread at Thanksgiving. My daughter Sophia called from university at midnight, voice shaking. "Dad, someone tagged you in a post calling you an unstable psychotic. And now my roommate's mom, who lives in Cedarbrook, is texting asking if you're okay, like you're having a breakdown. I had to tell 3 people today that my father isn't losing his mind. This is humiliating. For you or for me?" I said it as a joke. It came out bitter. "Dad, I'm sorry, sweetheart. I'm handling it. Are you?" I did not have a good answer. The worst part was not the social media post. It was the grocery store 3 days later. My cart had a squeaky wheel. The sound echoed through the frozen food aisle like a beacon pointing at the local pariah. I passed 3 neighbors I had waved to for 20 months. All 3 suddenly found the nutritional information on ice cream containers absolutely fascinating. I stood there holding a bag of frozen vegetables, wondering if this was how social death felt. Slow, cold, surrounded by discounted desserts. And then Raymond Castellano knocked on my door with a casserole and a manila folder. Raymond is 71, a retired postal supervisor with the energy of someone half his age, and the organizational skills of someone who spent 3 decades sorting mail in his sleep. He was the only committee member who had voted against Barbara's road project, which earned him a citation for a non-compliant mailbox post that had been in the exact same location for 16 years. "Figured you would need this," he said, handing me the folder, still warm from his printer. "And the casserole. Tuna noodle. Do not judge me. My late wife's recipe. It is better than it sounds." Inside the folder, 3 years of unredacted association meeting minutes. I flipped through them while Raymond helped himself to my coffee. Barbara had been operating the association like a personal slush fund. $47,000 to her brother-in-law Gerald's landscaping company over 2 years. I had done enough municipal contract work to know that comparable firms would have bid $29,000. Meeting notices mysteriously failing to deliver for committee members who disagreed with her. Selective enforcement so blatant it would be amusing if it was not bankrupting people. Her tennis partners had inflatable holiday decorations up in February, but Mr. Kim got fined for a gnome. She is a bully with a gavel, Raymond said quietly. But bullies get careless when they think they are untouchable. Why are you helping me? He smiled, sat around the edges. Because she did the same thing to the Harrison family 2 years ago, and the Chen family before them. Elderly widow could not afford to fight. Lost her home over $10,000 in fines. His jaw tightened. Someone has got to stop her. You look angry enough to try. That night I pulled the association financials. My separation attorney Michael had once told me that in Virginia, association members have the legal right to inspect financial records. Committees hate it, but it is the law. I filed a formal records request. Barbara's attorney tried to delay. I filed a state complaint. 12 days later, the financials arrived in my inbox. I nearly dropped my laptop. The road project was budgeted at $86,000. But when I submitted a Freedom of Information request for the actual contractor invoices through the municipality, since the road crossed a public utility easement, making them public record, the real cost was $57,000. $29,000 simply vanished. My hands were shaking when I dug deeper. Barbara's real estate firm was the registered agent for the contractor's limited liability company. She was paying herself with association money and calling it community improvement. I sat there in my kitchen at 2 a.m, the numbers glowing on my screen, and something cold and sharp settled in my chest. This was not just about my trees anymore. I amended my legal response that night. Countersued the association for $160,000 in property damage, legal fees, and emotional distress. Filed a formal complaint with the State Oversight Board. Attached every invoice, every inflated contract, every questionable transaction. Barbara's attorney, Dennis, sent a letter calling my claims frivolous and borderline defamatory. The man wore tan suits and a Bluetooth earpiece like he was auditioning for a mid-2000s reality television show. I did not waste time responding to Dennis. Instead, I uploaded the public records to the community social media group. No accusations, no commentary. Just the documents and one sentence. Transparency matters. You decide. The comments shifted within minutes. Wait, why are there 2 different budget numbers? Who approved Gerald's company without competitive bids? Is anyone else bothered by this? Barbara deleted my post within an hour, but screenshots live forever and 42 people had already downloaded the files. I poured myself a bourbon and watched my phone light up with private messages. People I had not heard from in months suddenly remembered my name. The war had just gone public. Barbara called an emergency special committee meeting 4 days after my social media post went viral. The agenda had one item: member conduct violations, potential expulsion. I received 56 hours notice via certified mail. The association bylaws require 10 days. I made a note of that in the legal pad I had started carrying everywhere. The one that was filling up with Barbara's mistakes faster than I could flip pages. The meeting was held at the clubhouse on a Tuesday night. I showed up 20 minutes early with Michael, my attorney, who had started giving me a bulk rate discount because this case was more entertaining than anything on streaming services. The parking lot was packed. 70-plus residents crammed into a room designed for 35. The air already thick with the smell of cheap carpet and whatever industrial cleaner they used on the tables. People stood along the walls, sat on the floor. Someone in the back row was eating popcorn. Actual microwave popcorn. The butter smell cutting through the cleaning solution. Barbara sat at the head table in a cream blazer that probably cost more than my vehicle payment. Her platinum-highlighted bob freshly styled. Smile fixed in place like she was hosting a particularly unpleasant parent-teacher conference. She called the meeting to order at 7 sharp. "We hate doing this," she began, voice dripping with fake sympathy that could have doubled as pancake syrup. But Mr. Patterson's recent actions have created a hostile environment that harms our community. Regulation 24 allows the committee to expel members whose conduct is detrimental to the common interest. She presented her evidence on a presentation slideshow. Yes, a slideshow with slide transitions, the kind that whoosh, slide one. The police report I had filed after the bulldozer incident, framed as, filing false claims against contractors performing authorized work. Slide 2. My social media post with the financial documents, labeled defamation and spreading misinformation. Slide 3. A photo of my commercial vehicle parked on the street overnight. Apparently a violation of some parking rule I had never heard of, and that had never been enforced on anyone else. Behind Barbara, I could literally see 3 cars parked on the street through the clubhouse window. The irony was so thick you could have spread it on toast. Michael stood up. Mrs. Hutchins, these allegations are baseless. Barbara cut him off with a smile sharp enough to open mail. Mr. Friedman, this is an internal association matter. We will hear from Mr. Patterson if he wishes to speak, but this is not a courtroom. I had been sitting there watching this performance, my jaw tight enough to crack teeth, and suddenly I remembered something my Aunt Carolyn used to say. Never interrupt your enemy when they are making a mistake. I stood up, calm, hands in my pockets. I have one question for the committee. Barbara's smile faltered for half a second. Go ahead. Has anyone here actually read the contractor's insurance certificate? The room went silent. 70 people holding their breath. Someone's phone buzzed and it sounded like a chainsaw. I am sorry, Barbara said, but her left eye twitched. Tiny. I caught it. The contractor, Green Vista Construction, their liability insurance. I pulled a folded document from my jacket pocket. I requested it from the municipality 3 days ago along with every other permit and certification. Their policy expired 13 days before they started work on my property. I walked to the front table and slid copies across to each committee member, meaning if anyone got hurt during construction, a child on a bicycle, someone walking their dog, anyone, the association is personally liable, not the contractor, you, your houses, your savings accounts. Committee member Patricia, a nervous accountant who always looked like she would rather be anywhere else, went sheet white. Ernest, the treasurer who had rubber-stamped Barbara's budgets for 3 years, stammered. Barbara, did you verify the insurance before approving? This is a distraction tactic, Barbara snapped. Her hands were flat on the table now, knuckles white. We are here to discuss Mr. Patterson's conduct. Us in the municipality never issued a grading permit, I continued, my voice level, almost casual. You need one for any earth-moving project over 1,000 square feet. This road was 40 feet wide and 200 feet long. That is 8,000 square feet, I paused. Let it sink in. The fine for unpermitted grading in Virginia is $12,000 per day until you get compliant. It has been 58 days. Want to do the math? The room exploded, residents shouting questions demanding answers. Raymond was grinning like he just won the lottery. Patricia looked genuinely ill. Barbara banged her gavel, an actual wooden gavel she had purchased herself because subtlety was never her strong suit. We will table this discussion and verify. Motion to vote on expulsion. Committee member Arnold interrupted. Retired dentist. Barbara loyalist. Never voted against her once, but even he looked rattled. We need to postpone this vote until we verify these claims. Motion to move forward. The vote was called. 3 for expulsion. 3 against, Raymond and 2 others who had apparently located their spines. Barbara broke the tie. Mr. Patterson is suspended from all association privileges pending resolution of legal matters. But I could see it in the room. The shift. People were not looking at me with suspicion anymore. They were looking at Barbara with questions. After the meeting, Jennifer, a mother of 3 who had been denied a swing set variance last year because it was visually disruptive, caught me in the parking lot. How do we get her out? She whispered, recall election. State law says we need 30% of homeowners to sign a petition. I pulled out my phone, showed her the draft I had been working on since yesterday. I need people willing to knock on doors, she nodded, jaw set. I will start tomorrow. I drove home with the windows down, cool November air washing over me. And for the first time in 2 months, I did not feel like I was drowning. I felt like a wave building offshore. And Barbara had no idea what was about to hit her. The envelope appeared in my postal box on a Saturday morning. No return address, no postmark. Just my name typed on a white label and a bulk of documents inside that made the envelope bulge uncomfortably. I opened it sitting in my truck. the paper dry and slightly warm from sitting in the metal compartment. The first document I extracted was a foreclosure notice from 2018. Association of Cedarbrook Meadows versus Chen. Margaret, Lot 53. Outstanding dues and violations, $10,200. Foreclosure proceeding authorized by committee vote 7-1. Paperclip to the front was a handwritten note in neat cursive. Ask why she really left. A friend. My hands went cold. I sat there in the post office parking lot, engine ticking as it cooled, flipping through page after page of violation notices. Fence height, unauthorized flowers, driveway parking. Each one stamped with Barbara's signature and a $250 fine. I searched the name when I got home. Margaret Chen, obituary from 20/20, age 76, died in an assisted living facility 95 miles away. Complications from stress-related illness. Survived by one daughter, 3 grandchildren, and probably many people who wished they had done something sooner. I found her daughter Anna through a community support group. She had posted about helping elderly Asian families navigate predatory housing situations. I called her that afternoon, my thumb hovering over the number for a solid minute before I pressed it. She picked up on the second ring. Ms. Chen, my name is Marcus Patterson. I live in Cedarbrook Meadows, and I think your mother... You are the guy fighting Barbara Hutchins. I blinked. How did you... It has been all over the community groups. Someone sent me the social media post with the financials. Her voice was tight, controlled, the kind of calm that comes from years of swallowing rage. What do you need? I need to know what happened to your mother. There was a long pause. Traffic sounds in the background, a horn, someone shouting in a language I did not recognize. They hounded her for 2 years, she finally said. Started with a fence that was 7 inches too tall, according to some code she had never heard of. Mom built it herself after my dad died. 73 years old out there with a post-hole digger and a level, because she wanted privacy in the backyard where she did her morning Tai Chi. Barbara personally came to her door and told her it was visually disruptive. Fined her $250 a month until she took it down. I could picture it. An elderly woman. A fence she had built with her own hands. Barbara in her luxury SUV, clipboard in hand, smile painted on. That was just the beginning, Anna continued. Wildflowers in the flower bed. They said they were weeds. Parking in the driveway because the garage door opener broke and she could not afford the $500 repair. A bird feeder. Her voice cracked. They buried her in violations until she owed $10,000. She was on a fixed income. Social Security and whatever Dad left her. She could not afford an attorney, so they foreclosed. She had a stroke the week after the eviction. My jaw was so tight I thought my teeth might crack. I spent her last 2 years visiting her in a nursing home, where she did not remember my name. Half the time, she said quietly. And I blamed Barbara Hutchins for killing her. I flipped through the documents again. Foreclosure auction notice. Winning bid, $152,000, maybe 65% of market value. 6 months later, listed by Barbara Hutchins, realty for $240,000. She had made $88,000 off an elderly widow's forced eviction and probably slept soundly every night. Something, cold and sharp, crystallized in my chest. Not anger. Colder than that, purpose. Anna, I am taking over the association. We are forcing a recall election, and when I win, everyone is going to know exactly what she did to your mother. What do you need from me? Testimony, records, and if you are willing, come to the recall meeting. Tell people her story. I will be there. I hung up and sat on my deck for an hour, watching the sun bleed orange through the pine trees Barbara had not managed to destroy yet. Rufus curled up at my feet. June rested her massive head on my knee, her eyes watching me with that particular mastiff concern that always made me feel like someone was paying attention. This was not about my maple trees anymore. This was not even about the $42,000 lawsuit. This was about every person Barbara had crushed because she could. Because no one had stopped her. Because the system was designed to let people like her win. I called Raymond. We are not just recalling her, I said. We are taking the whole committee. You and me. We are running. When do we start? Tonight. Bring coffee and your printer. We have got 360 doors to reach and we need 108 signatures. Time to go to work. We set up operations at my kitchen table that night. Raymond showed up with a laptop older than my truck. a printer that jammed every fourth page, and a thermos of coffee strong enough to strip paint. First things first, he said, spreading out a hand-drawn map of Cedar Brook Meadows that looked like something from a heist movie. We need 108 signatures. That is 30% of the 360 households. North Carolina law is specific about that number, but we are not stopping there. We need overwhelming numbers because Barbara is going to challenge every signature that even looks like it might have been signed during a light drizzle. How many are we shooting for? 160, maybe more. He tapped the map with a pen that was running out of ink. These neighborhoods here. He circled the older section closest to my property. They remember when the association was reasonable, before Barbara turned it into her personal empire. These folks are our base. We spent 3 hours building a database. Every household. Every violation notice we could dig up from Raymond's files. Every person who had ever been on Barbara's bad side, which turned out to be roughly half the community. The next morning, Jennifer showed up with 3 other mothers from the elementary school carpool rotation, all of them wearing athletic wear and expressions that suggested they had toppled governments before breakfast. "We have got a phone tree," Jennifer announced, handing me a spreadsheet that could have coordinated a space mission. 47 people willing to make calls. Another 22 who will go door to door. "When do we start?" "Now," I said. "Perfect." Michelle here got cited last month for a decorative garden flag that said, "Welcome." Apparently it was visual clutter. "She's very motivated," Michelle smiled. It was not a friendly smile. By day 3 we had a system running like clockwork. Raymond handled the legal paperwork. 30 years at the Postal Service taught him more about bureaucratic procedure than most lawyers learn in a decade. I worked on the financial documentation, cross-referencing every questionable expense. My engineering background made me fluent in spreadsheets and municipal codes, and Barbara's sloppy record-keeping was like finding structural cracks in a bridge. Once you knew where to look, they were everywhere. Contractor invoices that did not match work orders. Landscaping bills for properties that did not exist. A $6,000 consultation fee paid to a company with no website, no phone number, and a registered address at a shipping store. I had done enough municipal contract work to know when someone is trying to hide money. They leave breadcrumbs everywhere. Michael reviewed everything and whistled low. "If this goes to the State Association Board, she is finished. Completely finished. The kind you have to scrape into the trash." On day 4, I went door-knocking with Jennifer. Hit 35 houses in 4 hours. The first guy who answered, Frank, retired plumber, looked like he had been waiting his whole life for this conversation. Signed before I finished my pitch. "She fined me $350 because my grass clippings blew into the street," he said, pen moving fast. "I mow every Saturday, have for 22 years. She drove by once during a windstorm and sent me a violation notice with a photo of grass clippings that were already gone by the time the notice arrived." The anger in this community was not just deep. It was specific, documented, and it had been simmering for years. Anna drove down from Richmond on day 5. She brought copies of every document related to her mother's foreclosure. Violation notices, payment records, the auction paperwork. We sat on my deck while she walked me through it, her voice steady, but her hands shaking slightly when she held up the final eviction notice. "She got this on a Tuesday," she said quietly. "Had the stroke on Friday. I did not have words for that. Just sat there while Rufus sniffed at her shoes and June leaned her full 65 pounds against her leg, which is Mastiff language for 'you are not alone.' By the end of week 1, 119 signatures. By week 2, people were coming to us. The momentum had shifted. That is when I made the flyer. 1 page, simple. My old supervisor used to say, "People do not care about numbers. They care about what numbers mean. Your association fees, where do they go? Barbara's brother-in-law's landscaping, $47,000 over market rate expired contractor insurance. Your risk unpermitted construction, $696,000 in potential fines foreclosures on elderly residents, 4 and 5 years. All resold by Barbara Hutchins Realty. Time for new leadership. Signed the recall petition. We printed 600. They vanished in 2 days. We hit 153 signatures. Barbara panicked. She scheduled a town hall for truth at the clubhouse. I did not go, but Raymond did. He said she wore a navy pantsuit and brought a presentation about community unity and outside agitators. 14 people showed up. 13 came to yell at her. One was her sister. On day 16, we submitted 174 signatures, 48% of Cedar Brook Meadows. The state certified it in 3 days. Election scheduled for 30 days out. Raymond and I filed to run for the committee that afternoon. So did Jennifer and 2 others. That night I sat on my deck with a beer watching fireflies blink in the dusk. The smell of honeysuckle hung thick and sweet. Someone down the street was grilling burgers. For the first time since the bulldozers came, I could breathe all the way down. 30 days until the vote. Barbara had 30 days to realize she had already lost. Barbara did not go quietly. Cornered animals never do. 4 days after we filed the recall petition, her attorney, Dennis, showed up at my door. It was 8:45 on a Wednesday morning. I was still in my work clothes from the studio, sawdust in my hair, hands smelling like wood stain. "Mr. Patterson," Dennis said, tan suit somehow looking cheaper in natural light, Bluetooth earpiece blinking like a tiny robot eye. "My client would like to discuss a settlement." I leaned against the door frame. Did not invite him in. "I am listening." Drop the countersuit. Drop the recall. "Mrs. Hutchins will pay for 10 new maple saplings, professional installation, and $12,000 cash for your trouble. You walk away, she walks away. Everyone moves on." I looked at him for a long moment. Somewhere behind me, Rufus was snoring like a chainsaw hitting a nail. "My trees were 200 years old, Dennis. 12 grand does not buy that. Neither do saplings. Be reasonable. Tell your client I will see her at the ballot box." I started to close the door. "She is prepared to go higher." I stopped. "How much higher?" $30,000, cash today. For half a second I actually considered it. $30,000 would cover my legal bills and then some. I could repair the property, replace the truck, maybe take Sophie on a vacation she had been asking about since her mom and I split. Then I thought about Margaret Chen, about the stroke she had the week after losing her home, about Frank and his grass clippings, about every person Barbara had crushed because nobody had the resources or the anger or the stubbornness to stop her. "No," I said and closed the door. Dennis was gone when I looked out the window 2 minutes later, but I had the feeling this was not over. I was right. The next morning I walked out to my truck and stopped dead. Someone had keyed the driver's side. A long jagged scratch from headlight to tailgate, spray painted across my mailbox. Liar. I stood there staring at it, my hands curling into fists. And I had to remind myself that punching a mailbox would not solve anything, and would probably just break my hand. I called Officer Martinez. He came out within an hour, took photos, dusted for prints even though we both knew it was pointless. "You got security cameras?" he asked. "No, but my neighbor 2 doors down does." We walked over together. Mrs. Wilson, a retired nurse who had been cited by Barbara for having the wrong color, rose bushes, I'm not making this up, pulled up her footage without hesitation. 2:15 in the morning. A white pickup truck with a contractor logo on the side circled my street twice, then stopped in front of my house. A man got out. Large, heavy-build, baseball cap pulled low. He keyed the truck, spray-painted the mailbox, and drove off. Mrs. Wilson zoomed in on the license plate. Clear as day, Martinez ran it. "That is Gerald Vance, owner of Green Vista Landscaping. Barbara's brother-in-law." Yeah, Martinez's jaw tightened. "I am bringing him in." Gerald was arrested that afternoon. Vandalism. I filed for a restraining order. When the district attorney reviewed the case, they added attempted witness intimidation because of the timing, right in the middle of the recall election. But the story did not end there. My phone buzzed around 6 in the evening. Text from a number I did not recognize. "Check your email. You will want to see this." I opened my laptop. New message from an anonymous email account. Subject line: "You need to know." Attached. Screenshots of text messages between Barbara and Gerald. Barbara: "He is not backing down. We need to make this stop. Gerald, what do you want me to do?" Barbara: "I do not know. Scare him. Make him regret this. Just make it stop." Gerald: "I will handle it." Barbara: "Do not tell me details. I do not want to know. I read them 3 times. Then I forwarded them to Martinez, to Michael, and to every email address on our recall petition list. Within an hour, the screenshots were all over the community social media group. Barbara tried to claim they were fake, doctored, taken out of context, but the timestamps matched Gerald's arrest. The phone number matched her cell. She had just implicated herself in a crime in writing because she was too arrogant to think anyone would ever hold her accountable. The recall election was 3 weeks away. We had 174 signatures when we started. By the end of that week, people were calling us asking how they could help, apologizing for not signing sooner, wanting to know if there was anything they could do to make sure Barbara lost. I told them the best thing they could do was show up and vote. Raymond called me on Saturday morning. "Marcus, we might actually win this thing." "Might?" "Okay, we are going to win this thing. But we need to prepare for what happens after. When we take over the committee, we are inheriting a mess. Barbara is going to burn everything on her way out if she can. Then we had better be ready." Sunday afternoon, Raymond, Jennifer, Anna, who had driven down again, and I sat on my deck and started planning what came next. Not just how to win, but what to do when we did. How to fix the financials. How to rewrite the bylaws so nobody could ever pull this again. How to restore trust in a community that had been poisoned from the top down for years. The smell of rain was coming in from the west. Thunder rumbled low and distant. June pressed against my leg, nervous about the storm. "We are not just taking over an association," Anna said quietly. "We are taking back a community." I raised my coffee mug. "Then let us do it right. 3 weeks until the vote." Barbara was out of moves, out of allies, and running out of time. We were just getting started.